Hello and welcome to Trust Your Glitter podcast. This is Christy Belich. I am here for the week of the 12th of February through the 18th of February. Now, I want to intro this podcast this week and just make a note about how every astrologer has their own interpretation, their own reading style, and also understand that I'm a flawed human as well. I'm a human interpreting the transits and the aspects in the sky based on Western astrology with my dog here. And I just want to say, it would be wrong of me not to acknowledge the fact that there is a pretty significant war going on at this time. I am going to be putting more stuff about it on social media, but I'm also interpreting the skies based on the fact that I find astrology and tarot to be a very empowering tool, especially following the lunar cycles. And so I want to just say that up top this week as we enter the transits ahead, because there's a lot of devastation going on in the world, and based on this new moon in Aquarius with the conjunction earlier this year between the solar energy and Pluto, as Pluto entered the sign of Aquarius, we're going to start to see more and more of this evolution towards community and coming together. And so I feel like I'm coming out of hibernation as just trying to figure something out. So I want to share things up top because personally, I am an astrologer, but I've also been on my own journey of mental health, mental wellness, and just watching the world shift, especially very poignantly, energetically, between 2020 and now. And so, I'm on the journey, just like all of us. So I need to say this up top because this week ahead is going to reinforce a lot of the integrative lessons we've been learning since 2020, as well as between the Cazimi, between the Sun and Pluto as Pluto re-entered Aquarius. And now this week we're going to have, and last week with the new moon as well, we have a lot of lessons at once. And this week ahead is quite busy energetically. So I want to acknowledge this because we may feel it in different ways depending on where we're at on our journey. Some may feel this as like, oh my God, what is going on with my body, right? Especially we've gone through something called the Great Awakening. And whether you're looking at this politically, or whether you're looking at this spiritually, or whether you're looking at this as kind of an all-encompassing thing, a spiritual awakening hits us on different parts and times in our lives and can be, it's multifaceted. So somebody could be going through, an outer planet to an inner planet transit in a different way. And very specifically, some people are going through Saturn returns, Saturn squares, Pluto conjunctions. Who knows how you're experiencing different things in your life? Solar arcs, solar returns, progressions. This is the beauty of the mosaic that is astrology. So we're all feeling this on different levels based on our personal astrology. But this week is going to give us a shift, asking us to evolve deeper and to evolve to a point of being like, okay, I'm in the US. I'm extremely aware and appreciative of the fact that this podcast is reaching, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Africa, all around the world, that I'm seeing people listen to this. And I just want to shout out and say thank you so much. And I'm trying to keep up with world news, and I'm seeing that there are protests not being covered in the media. And I'm seeing that, there's farmer protests in Europe. And I appreciate the fact that, there is a world shift happening. And we're seeing it in the weather. We're seeing it in the global, literally Gaia, Mother Earth, going through shifts. So it would be unfair of me to just dive in and not acknowledge this. And also, I want to acknowledge those around the world who are experiencing this with your governments. And the fact that, our media in the United States is very different. I would say a lot of people in the US are getting their media, international media, from TikTok. So I want to shout out, like, anybody who's stuck with me, especially from countries that may not be, US based, where our media is not showing us what's going on in your country. And so the way I want to say this is keep posting, because we need to know, we need to understand. I need to grow, I need to evolve, I need to get things from a different level. And when I want to shout out the fact that there are farmers legit protesting in the EU and in many countries around the world. I want to shout out these protests. I want to shout out other protests that are going on that the algorithm will block if you say them, but I do want to shout out, everything that's going on in the Middle East. I want to shout out that it's the month of February in the United States, and that is Black History Month. So I want to shout out the fact that, I'm a woman who knows astrology. I do comedy. I appreciate what this platform and what it does. But I also, I'm a one woman band right now. So if I'm ignorant or say anything stupid, just know that I'm trying to allow astrology to be a more empowering tool. And with that, let's get into the astrology. So welcome to the astrology of February the 13th through the 18th, 2024. As I said before, we have a very busy week ahead, so I really want to acknowledge the fact that transits are going to be hitting everybody in their own personal way, but we're also going to see this reflected in the world in some big way. I mean, it's hard not to see there is a lot happening at once on a political level, on an environmental level, and so we're going to continue to see these cycles. Now, with these cycles, I also want to acknowledge the fact that last week we had a new moon in Aquarius that I would interpret that it opened the door to personal action. So if you've been feeling a little bit caught up in your energy, in hermit mode, hibernation mode, in lost in I don't know what's going on mode, I can barely get up and get out the house mode, this is a nice shift, because by energy, by transit wise, it doesn't mean it's going to be the same way for everybody, but by transit wise, we're going to start feeling more energy, more blasts of energy. And with the Aquarian alignment between the Sun and Pluto, when Pluto re-entered Aquarius on the 20th of January, I wrote this down in my notes as an integration aspect. And how that translates is sometimes our mind, our body, and our soul or spirit, however you want to interpret it, receive a download, but it doesn't mean the download is going to happen immediately. So I think that between that 20th of January alignment and last week's new moon in Aquarius on the 9th with our Lunar New Year, this is actually bringing it to the forefront. And this is saying, okay, so you received the message. Your internal body was interpreting it on all levels. A lot of it had to do with generational trauma, generational healing. This could be as simple as that shit that holds us back, right? Raise your hand if you're listening, or if you're driving a car, don't raise your hand, but raise your hand if you're listening and you're a chronic self-sabotager in some sort of way. Be it procrastination, be it being in the same relationship cycles, codependency, saying you're going to do something, but you get in your own get in your own way. This is where that shift between Pluto and Capricorn and Pluto and Aquarius is long range. So a lot of times with astrology, we're looking at the short term, and I'm doing week to week horoscopes. I don't do sign by sign because it's so tailored to our charts. And yes, we can get a general horoscope for the week for our sign, but you never know until you look at your chart, because sometimes you have a progressed, something, an inner planet that's progressing, and you might need to start looking at a zodiac's horoscope for a different sign that's totally nothing to do with your sun, moon, or rising sign. So the overarching pattern of societal transformation is being seen on a grander scale. So as we look at this, it's almost saying the details, because Pluto and Capricorn was very getting lost in the devil is in the details. Saturn, Capricorn is legit, especially related to mundane things that we can get kind of obsessed with. The obsession could be with finances in an unhealthy way. And so, I have this on a personal level. I will share a personal story, for since about 2015, I have been in chronic debt. That's something that I'm working through, and I'm going to start figuring out how to talk about it more. It 1,000,000% has to do with generational healing, especially on the women's side of my family, the maternal aspect, because society, especially women, are shifting where our self-empowerment is. And for me, self-empowerment had to deal with the things that I would say to myself, about finances, or about being autonomous, or about being sovereign. And then on top of that, being a stand-up comedian, where it's a rite of passage to be in sort of a poverty cycle. It's a rite of passage to be oh my God, I went from zero, and I now I'm, kicking ass. So since 2015 until now, I have reached every level of of embarrassment in my life, creditors calling me, losing accounts, being told I could not return to certain accounts, literally having to borrow money, having to be an elder, I guess the term is millennial, and move into my parents' house, live on people's couches, sleep in Planet Fitness parking lots and shower at Planet Fitness. I've had to do a lot of shit that I truly, would say at this point in my life, I'm finding solutions towards this, but it's a process, right? So for me, that was a Pluto transit, a very long Pluto transit for me through Capricorn. For a lot of people, we have to look at the evolution because we went through a devolution with Pluto through Capricorn, and now we're in a personal and societal change, a personal and societal requirement to evolve into a community. But in order to do that, Pluto and Capricorn pointed out a lot of things. I mean, if we look at the historical events with Pluto in Capricorn, it did highlight so many things on so many levels. And, this includes political situations. This includes things that show a hierarchy in society that may not be serving us over the next century. So this is, again, a long game, but we at least have enough data to show us on a spiritual level that it could have felt like everything in our life was falling apart. And in many ways it did. I know a lot of friends that went through divorces or just lost everything or started from scratch or found a career and reignited their life. There was a rebirth happening as well. But as we enter this week, our first transit is Mars entering the sign of Aquarius on the 13th of February. This is important to note because this week we also have so much, I would say, if I were to circle a date, I would just highlight the whole week. Every single day brings us a message of sorts, and Mars brings us to action. So last week with Mars, we saw squares. Over the last few weeks, there have been squares with the North Node and South Node. The North Node and Chiron. North Node being in the sign of Aries. And because of this, I want to note the message, the relay message with Capricorn to Aquarius is, okay, there could have been this very stuck, stubborn, sort of almost an exhausting feeling with Mars and Capricorn, which is a very hardworking sign, and Mars in Capricorn is wonderful. But I want to say, the divine masculine energy, if we go into, we're going to take it up to the twin flame. Because the next 2 weeks, whether or not you believe in twin flame, and I'm looking at this as the consciousness between the divine masculine and divine feminine. For some people, that is 2 souls are 1 soul, and you're with a twin flame in your life. This could be, romantically, a family member, a friend, somebody that an acquaintance that you're like, nope, that's my twin flame. So I do want to say that the next few weeks, as we lead up to this eclipse that's on the way, we have some eclipses on the way. One's in Libra, one's in Aries. There is a recognition of relationships. And it could have been when this period of time leading up to Pluto re-entering Aquarius is okay, you do you, I do me. I'm over here, you're over there. Well, now we're being asked to align with our twin. And it could be ourself, right? And it's a little bit of both, because twin flames are really just a reflection of ourselves. So Mars, the divine masculine, enters the sign of Aquarius on February 13th. This is the energy of, okay, action to innovation. Take that new moon message and actually do something with it. No more procrastination. My guess, my feeling, is there's going to actually be more impetus to do this there's going to be actually more drive to go forward here as opposed to stalling on your bullshit. I don't mean to call it bullshit because I know this is my bullshit too. I have things that I need to do. I need to start putting myself on video. I'm so scared, right? So scared to put myself on video. And I'm telling myself everything. Like, I don't have the right lighting. I don't have the right makeup. I don't have the best clothes. Like, all the shit that's making me not go on video. So I'm like experimenting with it on TikTok, right? But that's my 1% per day. I have to put my face on camera at least a certain amount of times per week as I lead up to getting my ass back on video, right? Not my ass, but my face. So this is just transits. We'll get into the aspects as well. The aspects. So the 16th, if I were gonna circle a day, I would call this a doorway day. So we've got a first quarter moon, a waxing quarter moon at 27 degrees of Taurus. This waxing quarter moon is at 10:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, the notes that I put with this first quarter moon. So let's look back. Last week, new moon, innovative, water-bearing Aquarius, electric particulates in the sky, that electric liquid in the air. Anybody who has a humidifier knows there's liquid in the air. So here we go. We're in between. We're in betwixt. We're going from that new moon to this waxing, meaning she's gathering light. She's midpoint light, halfway dark. She's starting to become more luminous after the 16th as she heads towards a full moon on the 24th. So that'll be next week. We'll talk about that. But I do want to note the in-between phase because I'm going to do a little experiment here. We're going from an Aquarius new moon, setting new intentions, to this midpoint here. So with this midpoint first quarter moon, we're being asked to assess the shit that was in the way for pretty much the rest of 2023, early 2024, until now. So this is actually a good, and it's not like saying, oh, you have to get this all done right now. You're assessing. You're in mode of, how do I push this block out of the way? And 27 degrees Taurus, first quarter moon, is nice because it's in a friendly aspect to Neptune in Pisces. 27 degrees Taurus is going to be in a sextile to Pisces Neptune. So it's saying, okay, you've got a dream here. You've got maybe many dreams. This is practical, yet how do we apply this and turn it into physical? Taurus being an earth sign. You might feel a little tired, exhausted, and there's other transits this week and aspects that are going to kind of get us into wanting to hone and zone our energy. But this is like, how do we take action while we're also recovering from, I would say, generational trauma? You feel that pull from beyond the realms. And so I think the 16th is a really good day to understand why you're here. And it's important to also know that Venus, the divine feminine, enters Aquarius on this day. So the 13th brings us the divine masculine Mars, action energy. So top of the week might feel a little bit more like, yes, this is a busy entry point. The 16th kind of shifts. So it's still busy. It's still like there's a lot. If you're a business owner, for example, there's a lot of, say you have a business with orders like food service, any type of service. The next few weeks you might feel like you're just swamped with orders, and your ability to deliver those orders might be just, you can't keep up with it. It's kind of that feeling. So the 16th is a good day to ask yourself, what really serves your soul, your heart? What really rewards the feminine? Because this first quarter moon is highly feminine, of a Venusian ruled sign of Taurus, and then Venus also transits into Aquarius on that day. So that is an important point this week, and also Valentine's Day I need to acknowledge, and we'll get into that in a second. Transit-wise, though, it's important to acknowledge the divine feminine this week kind of has a say in putting down, like, say you see the incredible just movement of energy around you. This is where you set that boundary and say, all right, well, we can do a 12-hour day, an 8-hour day. We can split things up. But this gives you a check and balance here. And then I'm not going to welcome Pisces season quite yet, but I'll acknowledge, because we do enter Pisces season this week. But we enter Pisces season on February 18th at 11:13 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So technically, I want to say, like, it's almost like as we enter Pisces season, it's a reward for all of the information and energy that moves around this week, and like kind of gives us this shove of energy and requires us to have to really acknowledge our body. Because there can be a disconnect this week between mind and body. And I think that that's what this quarter moon is doing, is saying, actually, you're a body before you're a machine. Like, we know there's so much in Aquarius, and we're star seeds, and we're like traveling on this crazy planet in this realm. But like, let's also bring it to Earth here. So I like there's a quarter moon in Taurus right before the sun enters the watery, gentle, I don't want to call Pisces gentle, but let's do it, compassionate sign, emotional, poetic sign of Pisces. But as we enter Pisces season, I do want to count up for next week a little bit, just because it's like, of course the Pisces season happens at the last hour. Well, Eastern Standard last hour of the week. All right. So let's look at the aspects. So I'm kind of doing things out of date order. I'm doing them in energy order. So whatever you feel, just feel it as I speak it. So aspects are how planets discuss energy to one another. They talk, they speak, they communicate. And so on the 12th of February, Mercury in Aquarius is semi-square to Neptune. They are relaying, I almost feel like Aquarius, Mercury Aquarius, which are mind, and Aquarian energy, which is like, okay, I have all these ideas and kind of getting all these downloads. And then the semi-square to Neptune almost has a comedic tone to it, to me, like when I'm looking at it, because Aquarius is looking at Neptune, and Neptune is like, I'm your neighbor, right? We're neighboring right now, Mercury. And I've been here a while, and just to let you know, we're all love. We're all like particles. And then Mercury's there laughing, and they're kind of getting along, but also they're kind of in friction because Mercury's like, but we have to make these changes. And Neptune's like, what is change? It's like it's like when you're seeing two people in a band and they're both like equally loved. It's just that one is like the John Lennon, and Neptune is very much like the John Lennon vibe, where I don't like the Beatles, okay, but let me think of a different band. Let me think. I can't really think of it's maybe like the Paul McCartney is Mercury Aquarius, but Paul McCartney really isn't Mercury Aquarius. Anyway, I'm on a tangent. But basically it's like two band members. And one is like, let's do this, and it's going to push us forward, and it's going to get us a bigger, wider vision. And then the Neptune Pisces is like, but we are just all one uniting force, man. That's the vibe. Was that I got us to the point. And way too long to talk about a semi-square, but that's how we're doing it. So then February 13th, Venus, 26 degrees, and this is prior to Venus entering the sign of Aquarius. So Venus at 26 degrees Capricorn is sextile to Neptune in Pisces. So again, we're going to maybe on the 12th, 13th. I just feel like there might be people out there who are in the final throes of a thing, meaning like this could be legal shit too. And the reason I bring that up is 26 Capricorn, we know her. We know this point. And so anytime I see 26 degrees Capricorn on anything, this week might be concluding some legal shit for people. And I know Neptune's there, and it is all about our dreams. But I'm really strongly feeling like there are people in the final, like, throes of settling stuff. So I just want to note that could be part of this week, because there's a lot of Pluto, and we'll talk about that because Valentine's Day is this week, right? So, 14th February, Mars, 0 degrees of Aquarius, is conjunct Pluto. I know. On Valentine's Day. And so, just take a deep collective sigh and just know the universe has a sense of humor. So maybe your Valentine's gift this week is you never have to see that motherfucker again, okay? Sometimes that is your Valentine's gift. Some people are in the most amazing Valentines of their life. It depends on what Pluto be Plutoing to you, okay? It really depends on what Pluto be Plutoing to you. If Pluto's Plutoing like, hey, you've done a lot of work, you're in the phase of your life right now where you're just feeling whole love, whole vibes, whole connection, which is what it should be with Aquarius, but it's not always going to be that way for everybody, then you're going to like have the best Valentine's Day ever. Do not get caught up in what social media is showing you if you're feeling that. Trust the process and know that Pluto through Aquarius is also transforming what the internet is, and it's going to show us some other realities, especially as AI becomes a more I don't want to say like entrenched, but I'm going to have enmeshed part of our life. So, Mars conjunct Pluto on Valentine's Day, I would say take some time. The world is moving quickly. The energy is very like immediate in a lot of ways, especially at the top of the week. But just note, do something good for yourself this week. Plan and carve out a time where you can just feel, because Mars conjunct Pluto is intense. That is intense shit. And we're going to have another conjunction to Pluto this week. So call back again. I keep talking about the 20th of January. Call back. What was going on in your life back then? What was happening? Revisit journals, emails, conversations, because we're revisiting it with Mars now. And I need to also say this. Mars is the god of war. Mars is gonna show us some shit. And I want to say on the 14th that we kind of want to look at the global stuff, right? We have to really be aware of what's going on globally. I understand everybody's on a different, like some people avoid the media altogether. This is not the podcast for that right now. I'm going to bring that part in too because it's just really pertinent to the transits. It's really pertinent to Pluto and Aquarius. You can't ignore it. You can't be an ostrich no more, especially with Mars and Pluto. And that could mean that it's related to, a cause that your body is feeling really, 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 really called to speak out on. But it's something is igniting that drive for activism right now for people. And Mars is not taking any shit. Mars is speaking the truth. Aquarian energy. We've got Mercury in Aquarius here. So I really want to acknowledge the 14th can be a rather rocking day. And it is a day of love, but sometimes tough love is tough love. And pay attention to your mental health this week as well. Be really kind to yourself. And if anybody's going through anything out there, this is an intense time, and if you're picking up on the world's stuff, and also acknowledge the fact that we can turn off our phones, we can turn off our devices, we can spend time in nature, but if you're an empath, you're a fucking empath, and you can pick up on shit that other people can't feel. And as different generations are taking the wand of, I don't want to say the wand of power, because I think that we're seeing through some stuff, and certain generations were like, well, we know better, and just put your head down and go to work and do the thing. And this week it's really not ignoring that. You can't ignore it anymore. You can't ignore the fact that the structures of power are changing. A lot of people are getting messages from beyond, or, in ways that you didn't realize you were getting messages. I don't want to call it telepathic, but if you want to call it a thing, could be telepathically. Could be through your dreams. It could be through feelings. It could be through subconscious writing, where you're just writing out things. It could just be through just knowing something's about to go down. So just understand, if you're having something where you're I don't know, I've never felt this before. I've hearing for some, I think Dolores Canyon calls it the humming in your ear or the ringing in your ear, where it's this is universe speaking to you. You might have some of that this week. And on the 15th, we have the sun semi-sextile to Neptune. If earlier I said there was a semi-square between Mercury, or semi-sextile, there's a semi-square between Mercury and Neptune. There's a semi-sextile between the sun and Neptune, meaning they're 30 to 30 degrees, 26 Aquarius to 26 Pisces. I just when I look at transits, I flow with the energy. And that's how I felt I needed to do this podcast today. So if I make errors in how I say things, just know I'm reading for energy. And that energy between the sun and Neptune, again, we're looking at neighbors. So sign next to sign, Aquarius next to Pisces. Look at Taurus next to Gemini. That's a semi-sextile. And so that energy is semi-friction, semi-compatibility, because each neighboring sign kind of holds a pattern. There's a reason why the zodiac is constructed in the way it is. And so, say you're an Aquarius, you may have Piscean planets, or vice versa. But in the absolute energy of Aquarius and the absolute energy of Neptune, on the 15th, we're going to be feeling a little bit of, I don't want to say disconnect, but recognition that there's truth and then there's kind of the idealization of life. So I do want to see how kind of maybe more celebrity culture is this week, and I do want to eventually do a Taylor Swift episode, but I kind of want to take some time with that because I think that there's going to be a shift in what celebrity culture is and how that applies to the greater collective. And on the same day, Mercury is sextile to Chiron and sextile to the North Node and trine the South Node. So Mercury is at 16 degrees Aquarius. We have Chiron at 16 degrees Aries, the North Node at 16 degrees Aries. Now, the exact conjunction between Chiron and the North Node by degree is next week, so we'll get into that, but we're being influenced by the North Node Chiron, and if somebody were to have a natal chart, like if somebody were to be born this week, I would definitely count it as a North Node Chiron conjunction for sure, but the actual conjunction is next week. So we need to also say society is being brought towards a really tough place of friction because Aries North Node with Chiron is not easy. And on a personal level, our wounds are right on the table. They've been on the table. And this is just an example of this energy. I legit had to stop recording and just put on like a little short meditative sound just to boost my energy. So it could feel like the 15th and 16th are days where there's so much energy being expelled that you just have to like regroup and because there's kind of this interchange between burnout and needing to go. So if you're feeling this, it'll be most poignant between the 15th, 16th, and 17th. And with let me make sure. So with those nodes, even with a trine to the South Node, right? So as we're in Aquarius season, as the planets kind of get to the mid degrees of Aquarius, we're going to have a trine to the South Node. And I think the South Node I've been overlooking because that North Node has Chiron there. And the eclipses ahead are so connected to the North Node Chiron that it's like we have to prepare for this North Node and Chiron. But we're also releasing a lot of codependent bullshit because the South Node's in Libra. And so with the trine to the South Node and with the knowledge of the new moon and all of the conjunctions this week that we're going to be experiencing, that trine to the South Node is actually quite nice. It's very lovely because you're realizing it. You're seeing the patterns. You're seeing things before they happen. You're giving your mind the ability to stay in an empowered space and recognize that you came from a different part of not everything comes from ourselves, and it's up to us to decide what really matters and what's really somebody else's stuff being placed upon us. And because there's this Libran dynamic, there can be a reflective energy, a projection energy, and that is something that's really important to note, especially after kind of a major holiday of what love is supposed to be according to, capitalism. And so on the 16th, we are, with Venus having entered the sign of Aquarius, also the first quarter moon. We also have Mercury square to Uranus. Think back again to that new moon. I know I keep bringing us back to the new moon. That new moon had so much information for us. It was wild. We're there again, but this time with Mercury square Uranus. Now, that square was with a 20-degree Aquarian new moon. Mercury's at 19 degrees. Uranus is at 19 degrees Taurus. Mercury 19 degrees Aquarius. But this is, again, we have to take action this week. Even with all the energy flying around, even if there's like a time where you're like, I need to sit down and meditate. Send the email. You can schedule it for the next day. Tape the video, do the podcast, call the person, make the plan, go to that meeting. It's that kind of vibe, even with all the other stuff happening. Even if this is a square to Uranus. And also, by the way, you can take the action and the universe is going to universe. Just like with the new moon. It might not be the thing that you planned for, but it's going to be a thing. And it's going to be big. And it's going to be a vision. And it's going to be a manifestation. I will say that this week is definitely a time where manifestations kind of come out of nowhere. And that is a testament to Uranus, the nature of Aquarius, and also these Pluto conjunctions. Because guess what? We also have a conjunction on the 17th. So we had a Mars conjunct Pluto on Valentine's Day. And now on the 17th, we have Venus aligning with Pluto. You know how they say overnight success did not happen overnight? That's this week. Overnight success did not happen overnight. I'm obsessed with TikTok right now. I think it's the best app right now going for us. And I watch a lot of people who are doing their businesses completely live on TikTok to just kind of understand what the hell I need to do with my podcast, right? And I admire people who are on TikTok. I get a lot of ideas, and it's not from other comedians or podcasters. It's from like people who are making t-shirts and people who are doing hair and people who are baking cookies and people who are cutting soap and making soap for themselves. So it's like all the, and people who are making candles. And how everybody's kind of doing a different version of a business and how it's all collective and how it's what people are doing that they love. But everything that, and somebody who has a coffee shop. There is a woman who I absolutely adore on TikTok, and she's live every day. And while I edit my podcast, I put her TikTok live on and co-work with her. She doesn't even know I co-work with her, but it's called the Caffeination Station. And I just put it on for sound. It's my little podcast. And I listen to how she talks to her customers, and she just has a little bit, I think it's like an espresso shack out in Canada, and I'm obsessed. And I'm like, why am I obsessed with these people? Because it's about community service. And with Venus conjunct Pluto, there is a need, there is a call. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen on the 17th. But it's going to be there's something happening this week. There's historically things going down with these transits. And so I don't even think it's going to be like, pay attention. I think we're going to know about this. And this is kind of like the Aquarian season's last hurrah. Aquarius had their time this year This was a big Aquarius season this year, right before we enter Pisces season. So this is a really big day to circle, although there's a lot of days to circle. But this is the day before Pisces season, so I also want to note that this is almost like, okay, we just want to take note of the 17th. Well, the 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th. And with that, I do feel like this podcast came together. I'm reading for the energy this week, so the way that sometimes I come to this podcast Capricorn. Some days I come to this podcast Aries. Today, I really tried to channel my inner Aquarius. I don't have any planets in Aquarius, but I do have a progression in Aquarius, so I'm really trying to channel that energy. And it took me from point A to B, C, D, E, and so forth. So, vibe with the podcast. Know that I'm reading for the frequencies. Know that this week is about collective energy. Really take note of your energy when we have that North Node in Aries. Really take note of what you're letting the fuck go out of what has no time in your space, which has no time in your life. South Node in Libra, with all the trines from Aquarius, because they're both air signs. Notice what goes on politically. We gotta take some note of this. Even if you're like, I ain't political, just take a look at the headlines. See how that reflects in your personal life. Where I think the most empowerment comes this week is literally body scans. And by the way, I'm doing this too. I'm doing this as I record this. Just body scans. Where do I feel the energy moving? How can I ground myself more? Small actions towards your goal. And also, ultimately, complete faith that the universe is going to bring you some pretty cool surprises. There's so many surprises on the way. So you put out your goals, what you wanted to bring in, and the universe was like, but did you know this person? Because they also are doing this thing too. Did you know that this thing is going on in this city? Because they're also doing that too. Did you know that you can, I don't know, if you want to make candles, for example, did you know that this person's essential oils are blessed? And also they're running a sale on them? And you can pour them in your candles? Anyway, I'm just saying. There's a lot of a lot. It's not good. It's not bad. It's intense. It's powerful. It's beautiful. Trust yourself. And for the twin flames out there, you're going to be feeling your twin. So that's another piece of this week too. Take care. Enjoy. This is Trust Your Glitter. My name is Christy Belich. I am on all social media. You can also find me at trustyourglitter.com. If you would like to book a reading with me, I am doing recorded podcast style readings. Now, when you get a reading from me, it's a lot like my podcast. So I do kind of go on tangents. I do kind of see and feel things, but I also kind of do a little podcast vibe. So readings are not very traditional. They are kind of out there, a little bit more Aquarian, so to speak, or ASMR style. But my readings right now, I'm booking 10-minute readings, recorded podcast style, and 30-minute readings, recorded podcast style. And the way I book them is I just get your information. My booking form's right on my email. It's also right on my website. It's also on my link tree, which is Trust Your Glitter. And if you book a reading with me, there's a little booking form, and you just put all your astrology information and your questions, and I get a reading to you within 24 hours, and that is directly sent to your email. It is an audio file form that you can keep forever. So just let me know. Again, Christy Belich, trustyourglitter.com. Thank you and enjoy your week and happy Valentine's Day.